Welcome to the Casey Digital podcast. It's the first podcast of 2020, and in this episode I've got Sian English, who's been a colleague of mine, and she's head of Multichannel here at 77. She's well known within the industry, well networked, and she's been around the block in terms of working client side, working agency side. She's worked in a marketing role pretty much her whole career, so hopefully you're going to get some really good insights in this episode. So, Sian, for those who don't know who you are, do you want to give a quick introduction?
Hi, my name's Sian English, at Sian English _ on Twitter for anybody who's interested.
Get those followers up.
Exactly. And I've worked in and around various marketing roles for the last decade, both in-house and for various different agencies.
Okay. And when we talk about your career, and I want it to be kind of showing people the marketing angle from working in lots of different roles and different types of roles as well. So when we kind of go back to when you were much younger than you are now, how did it all kind of start out for you in the kind of industry?
So when I graduated during the recession, which was great because it meant the one thing people weren't hiring for was marketing roles. Yeah. Ironically. Which is one thing you do need to grow a business. But anyway, I ended up going and working for what is now called Yodel, but it was called HDNL at the time. It's a delivery company based in Wiston, and I went up for a 1-year temporary job versus about 50 other recent graduates and gap year or like sandwich year students.
How did you hear about it?
A couple of friends of mine had actually got a graduate role at Yodel, and they sort of put me forward but didn't really tell me what the job was for.
Oh, right, okay.
So I rocked up being like a master's graduate, I had no idea what I was doing, and there were all these people there doing the sandwich year at uni. Anyway, I battled a bit like Game of Thrones and got through the entire day of psychometric testing, of deciding who you would save on a boat and trapped in a cave, all of this random stuff, and got one of the 3 jobs on offer.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great, and I started working for a small marketing team, but it was the first time I got exposed to communications, really. So I worked for a PR manager, we had a graphic designer, and we used a PR company, and a big part of that job was PR and internal comms.
Nice.
So that was the start.
Right.
That progressed pretty quickly because I obviously wasn't going back to university, so within 6 months I secured a full-time role there that meant I could stay beyond the year contract.
Right, okay.
My PR manager was lucky enough to get pregnant and go and have a baby. They didn't replace her, so I automatically was put into that position, which was a baptism of fire, especially working for a company that has a high level of customer complaints. And when the PR number is the only number on the website, you tend to get hammered a bit.
What was not back in the day, sorry. That was 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So it was over 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was 2009. So
it was a delivery business. What was the scale like then? Because I'm sure it's like huge now in comparison. Like e-commerce and delivery to home delivery and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
what was the scale like? Was it growing? Was it kind of a buoyant, kind of growing business?
It was. The delivery market is obviously you've got Royal Mail, you've got Hermes, you've got DPD, you've got DHL, you've got Yodel in there as well.
Yeah.
The e-commerce market was growing, despite the economy.
Yeah.
The issue over paying for things like delivery was new because obviously we don't have the tech we have now.
Yeah.
As in, there's always a squeeze on margins to pay for how much it's going to be to get that parcel.
Yeah.
But the dreams of next day delivery and text messages in a 2-hour slot were miles away.
Right.
Excuse me. What did exist was the really early inception of things like telematics on cars. So this was before you had you could track delivery vans when you were doing deliveries based on a manual sheet of paper.
Right.
So you would write down or get handed a list in the morning of these are your routes, these are your postcodes. Now that is just,
it's all automated through like mobile devices.
Absolutely, but I've spent night times at parcel depots, sorting parcels, seeing them whiz by. Like it's not quite as glamorous as in the movies, but it's interesting to see how it all works.
Yeah.
And the key thing there was, and the reason it's followed me around a bit over the last 10 years is, it was right at the intersection of really using social media for business. So I was on Twitter fairly early, but didn't really use it for didn't really know what it was properly. And quickly realised that would become a massive customer service medium, PR medium, communication medium.
Definitely.
So one of the last things I did as I was leaving Yodel was say to them, look, social media needs to be a really core part of your strategy, because if you're not going to be answering queries on the website, you need to have a two-way communication arm. Twitter's perfect for that. You've got an opportunity on Facebook as well. Didn't even think Instagram wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
So left them with that opportunity, and oddly, 7 or 8 years later, bumped into a guy who ended up going in and implementing that for them.
Really?
A guy called Jack, who runs a really cool company called Natta.
Oh, right, yeah.
They connect communication systems, and it was quite a nice little circle loop to see that it all happened in the end, and sort of see where they're at now in that context. But yeah, Yoda was a massive learning ground, because we went from zero to, trying to run something, manage agencies for the first time, implement new business things like, updates on what's happening in the market, providing context. It was the first time.
Planning as well, I suppose, because, like trying to put a plan together when you don't really know what you're doing is quite a difficult thing, isn't it? Especially in channels that are still growing.
Yeah, and, it's a constant struggle now still. But it was great, and I loved it. And some of the people I met at Yodel are still keeping in contact with now. They really helped shape, what I understood, and to try and get into marketing in a really tough market teaches you how to think about things in slightly more inventive ways. You don't have big budgets. You don't have a lot of leeway to do stuff. You just have to make things work.
Yeah. And obviously, so obviously you started out, left uni, you've gone into what we describe as a client side role, and then from there you moved on to Speedy, which was obviously it's a different market, but it's quite a similar transition, right? From where you were to where you went on to
B2B, with some B2C elements of it.
Yeah.
So Speedy was, for me, one of the best things I've ever got to do in my career.
Nice.
Absolutely loved it, and met some of the best people who sort of shaped where I am now. I thought I had a sort of an interesting role at Yodel, but what Speedy did was explode that. So I went from sort of very PR and comms, social media based, to going into Speedy and basically being their external communications manager, which meant managing agencies still, but also getting involved with new product launches, getting involved in radio jingles, getting involved in sports sponsorships, just tons of things that I don't think I'd ever get the opportunity to do again.
Like thing that you were telling me about, like the darts and some of the things that you were doing around the sponsorship around the darts. I think that kind of stuff's really cool. That is a good part about working client side. I do like in that role that you worked in with Speedy very much to when I was at Betfred. Although I wasn't like a lead at that stage, I was part of a team, a more junior member of a team, but we did sponsorships, and you go to like race meetings and like sponsoring poker events and stuff like that. It's good doing stuff like that. I think it's an aspect of marketing that obviously people still do, but I don't think people realise that offline side of things often drives your online. It drives your social media content and all the other things as well. So.
Massively more than ever, and the rise of digital over the years. Bear in mind, back then, our digital team was still saying, write as a press release, write as a case study. We'll send that out as a press release. We'll also just stick the same thing on the website. It was in an email, that kind of stuff. It was in its infancy, and it wasn't the dream of everything being joined up and speaking to each other was miles away. It was still, how can we measure this properly? How can we even think about measuring things? There wasn't the pressure there is on marketing now to account for every single penny spent. and have the sort of minutiae of every single result, which I think personally has damaged the industry. I think you can overmeasure.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I think there's a lot of vanity metrics. There's a lot of metrics that people look at and go, right, okay, impressions, share, search, whatever these things might be. They look at it and they spend a lot of time and attention because you've got so much access to data. It sometimes is like a bit of paralysis in terms of what are the key things that are going to make decisions, and that's ultimately what it is. It doesn't matter if it's marketing in 1976 or marketing in 2019 going into 2020. You've got to analyze what the state of the market is, use the data sets to then help make healthy decisions, obviously.
Absolutely, and it's the key thing that I've seen that hasn't changed is people get sidetracked by technology, they get sidetracked by data. Marketing is now what it always has been, which is, if you reason from first principle, like what are you doing? What problem are you solving?
Yeah.
Why do you exist? Not what do you exist or how do you exist? What is your purpose? What are you there for? What simple vision are you trying to create a response to? And one of the best talks I've seen at a conference last year was around data.
Yeah.
And it was a woman saying, data's great. Too much data is useless.
Yeah.
People get data blindness.
Yeah.
So if you're a shoe company that sell women's shoes, why do you need to know what size a guy's shirt is in Wales?
Yeah.
Data is important if it's data that's relative to your product or to your service.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Having 20 sets of data about one person means nothing if none of that applies to your business.
Yeah.
And it's often the simple stuff people are won over by.
Yeah, I know. For me, it's the impactful stuff. It's the stuff that kind of stops you in your tracks, and it's not the kind of 30% increase year on year. It feels a bit that like a lot of those like kind of traffic data sets or whatever feels quite monotonous. But if you said like our ads or our campaigns or our brand resonates with a specific segment of the market, 35-year-old females in the Northwest, I feel like that's a lot more interesting because you can put you can link it to like a human element, whereas some people are like 30% increase of whatever. It just feels a bit like kind of you can't understand it, truly.
And it can be its own worst enemy as well. Like some companies are using marketing data so simply and so effectively that they are fantastic at getting your attention, getting new customers, getting that on board. Where that really falls down with data in particular is when that data is used to push messages out, like buy from us, do this, take this action, and it isn't backed up at the other end of the scale, customer services or accounts or things. If you're unlucky enough to lose someone and you've ever had to go through the process of cancelling bills, closing down accounts because that person's died.
Yeah.
It's one thing when you're being marketed to buy something, but you try and get that data updated with relevant information.
Yeah.
The amount of times, British Gas or people like that or Sky just weren't on the game when it came to data.
Yeah.
And something as fundamental as, life and death. When it comes to marketing, they're ready to upsell you to a Sky Q box.
Yeah.
To someone who isn't around anymore.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think we've reached a point with data where it definitely is something that if companies aren't on top of across the entire business, this is where a company being properly linked and more than multi-channel but really integrated, that data has to be accurate. And it's accuracy of data that really matters.
I think as well having the right people handling data and information, because data in the wrong hands. It's such a broad, sweeping statement. It's like the word content, which is it's a dangerous word because if you can handle content, you can work with content. It's the same as data.
Yeah.
You can really get a lot of traction and move things forward. However, I think if you're looking at data and content in very broad context and you're not from that space and you're not an expert in that field, it's kind of like saying cars and mechanics. A little bit of knowledge can actually do some really bad damage. So obviously you've had a couple of client side roles.
Yeah.
Why did you move agency side?
So loved my time at Speedy. We continued in sort of construction and manufacturing after that at Knauf, and then actually made an error. A friend of mine has said that like in life, this isn't like a definitive or anything.
We're getting deep now, folks.
She was like, you will possibly get fired or made redundant once in your life. You will make a terrible decision job-wise in your life, and you'll know instantly, and it will become a big learning point, and you will experience one job that absolutely changes your life. And I think the role I went into next was the mistake one, the one where I knew on day one it wasn't the right role for me. It was, good company, really bad fit for me, and I sort of knew instantly that was not a place that was going to last long. So a couple of months in, I'd gone, but with that went a lot of confidence. So that was a job that was quite mentally abusive. There was a lot of
mentally abusive.
It was a lot of mind games, a lot of I don't have time for you in the day.
You're not talking about when you've been working with me, have you?
No.
Okay.
That's
a different mind game.
So there was a lot of manipulation, a lot of weird mind games that went on
from senior management.
From the owners and people who should know better, really.
Yeah.
Senior HR people who would do some really dodgy things, and they sort of really knocked my confidence, and I never thought that would happen to me. I never thought I'd be a person who could be rocked, but it was a job for the first time where I questioned, do I actually know what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Have I delivered these, global campaigns and got huge return on investments, and actually it was all a fluke, and I ended up here in this company where, I'm being undone completely.
Yeah.
I was, managing a team. It was a constant battle, and luckily one of the members of our team who left went to a brilliant job and went agency side.
Oh, okay.
And they got in touch with me and were like, look, they need a marketing manager. It's a brilliant company. Come and try it out.
Nice.
And I was a bit skeptical because it was a digital business, and my background really wasn't digital. I'd done everything but digital as a marketing role.
Yeah.
And I turned up and I was pretty flat by that point, because I was like, why is an agency, a marketing agency, going to hire me when I have no idea what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And
I think as well, like, you go for experience. I've been through a similar experience to what you're discussing. I think for anyone who's listening, who's been in a position like that, I think you can instantly connect with what you just said.
Yeah.
I've definitely been in that position. I think there are probably people going through that position now, where you feel like if something doesn't feel right, like morally, if you think this isn't quite working, this isn't how it should be, I think generally speaking, your gut feeling is right, and you need to do something about it. You need to act for yourself, because what happens is, and this is where a lot of kind of mental health issues come in, is people tend to think, no, I'll stick at it, or no, this is my job, I need to keep. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And what made it worse was I had the job at Canal that I'd only been there a year, but I loved and was brilliant.
Yeah.
I just saw it as such an opportunity that I couldn't miss out.
Yeah.
So I left something I loved to go to something that broke me.
Yeah.
And then when I went to the E Word, it built me back up again.
Yeah.
And there's Dan Nolan, who ran it at the time, was one of the people that built me back up.
Yeah.
But it was a slow process. Like I joined that company and didn't have any of the sort of sassy attitude that I tend to have now.
So I got Dan to thank for that.
Yeah, I got Dan to thank. But it was also a massive learning curve, because I'd gone from what I thought was quite fast paced, and in-house brands can be massively fast paced. But it's only when I think you've experienced working for an agency you realise what actually juggling and speed looks like.
Yeah.
Because you are often accountable for more than one brand or more than one thing.
Yes.
You have to be absolutely able to answer every question. I went from being on the phone shouting at agencies, which is honestly one of the worst things you can do. Like, your agency should be your ally. If you use them, love them, and if you don't love them, change them, but do not shout at them.
Yeah.
And don't blame them for everything.
Yeah.
But the shoe was on the other foot there. And it was amazing. Like the things they taught me, all of the stuff around. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I like something to be just right to do it. So
yeah.
it would take ages to craft a campaign or a concept, and it kind of got to the point where they were like, "Stop it!
It's too late.
It's too late. Stop. Just send out a first version. If it's good enough, send it. The next version will update it. The next. Stop waiting. And stop also waiting for us to provide you with things. Look at what's happened in the past. Repurpose it. Look at different ways of doing stuff.
Yeah.
And it taught me that you actually don't need a budget or money to do things successfully. It kind of made me fall back in love with marketing again, to be honest. After feeling very like, God, this game is not for me.
Yeah, I'm not a perfectionist. I'm glad I'm not.
No, but it absolutely made me see things in a different way, and it's exciting as well. It's the first time I got to pitch and think of things and actually be at the forefront of what is possible when it came to marketing. This was 2015 ish, which doesn't feel like that long ago.
But it's when kind of content marketing really started to explode, isn't it? The kind of the understanding of social networks as being more than just posting platforms for brands to have a one way kind of channel of communication. I reckon it was around 2014 to 2016 when social networks then became the true scale content creators on there. I know we've had YouTube for a while. I know we had Twitter where people like posting funny pictures and stuff. I think it's where it really started to kick off and really started to take off. And obviously that was around the time when Instagram really obviously started to grow as a platform as well. So,
and it was at this point as well where, despite being a digital agency, they fundamentally understood what it meant to attract new business and, get yourself out there. A huge part of that job was being out and about and meeting people. And I remember the first time I got taken to a networking event in Manchester.
By Dan
And by Cleon at the time as well, who was the BD director. And I walked into a room and they knew everyone. And I looked around the room and I was like, jeez. Like, how am I ever going to be able to...
It's quite scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it's intimidating. And you realise after a while that the same people tended to turn up to the same events. But, even the networking scene now versus then has changed massively in a really positive way. It's not all about boozing anymore. It's not all about, the same people going to things. The industry's changed since then. But what it did do was introduce me to the fact that partnerships and relationships over any marketing campaign that I could do would help drive that agency forward.
Yeah, definitely.
And, you can have a brilliant all singing, all dancing website as an agency, but unless you've got people who are known, respected, trusted thought leaders, most CEOs and senior decision makers are never going to see that website.
Yeah.
But they might notice a person on LinkedIn, or they might see somebody speak at a conference, and it reframed everything I was thinking of, and it was then that I started to get involved with people like Pro Manchester.
Yeah.
Got invited onto their creative committee. Since went on to join the retail committee and chair that. And it's when I started to get involved with the NPA as well.
Yeah.
We turn 100 this year in 2020. So now, as I say, I am vice chair of the NPA, which is a not-for-profit organisation helping digital media, creative and tech companies in Manchester thrive. So they solely exist to provide thought leadership, to provide skills support, to help attract and retain the best talent in Manchester in the creative and digital world.
What is it? So like when you're going onto those panels and you're a member of these kind of organisations that are there for the industry. So they're kind of there to help the industry thrive, and we're quite fortunate in Manchester that it is quite unique in that respect that we've got bodies like that. Like Manchester Digital and some other things as well, where you've got kind of bodies looking after that and driving it forward.
Manchester is what separates it from the rest of the UK, at least. I think the Northern Powerhouse is a great dream. I think Manchester for me stands out, having in my role now at 77, have it been a group role and working across Manchester and London. London doesn't do collaboration.
No.
It is its own entity. It does networking very differently as well. It's because it's a beast.
The bigger industry events, aren't they? Whereas I feel that Manchester's small enough for people to get together who are like-minded or from similar business backgrounds and not walk into the room, two video companies talking about what's going on in the video industry,
exactly.
instead of thinking of it as this is my competition.
But that collaboration as well, I think, is what's making us forge ahead as a city.
Yeah.
London has huge hitters in terms of agencies and brands.
Yeah.
But actually, they're not doing anything more forward thinking.
Yeah.
Than we're doing, in the north. And
yeah.
You only have to look at some of the companies up here now, Mediacom North, Social Chain.
Yeah.
All born out of here and doing things first and better than anybody else.
Yeah.
So that's been pretty amazing to be part of, see, and also sort of help steer that conversation.
And that, I suppose now that you're on like the MPA and you've been on Pro Manchester and you've done all these things, now you're like, like Dan brought you into that conversation and knew everyone in the room. That's now you, isn't it? I like when I go out to any event with you, I'm like, and you're always like introducing me like, yeah, and that's Paul, and yeah, he's the digital guy thing, whatever.
He's the digital guy.
Yeah. I need to change my job title actually. But you've invested time in networking people. So talk to me about how you've done that.
So I didn't really understand the concept of like meeting for a coffee until 4 or 5 years ago, and I was really naive to it. Sometimes it is coffees are coffees and let's share knowledge with each other. Sometimes a coffee is let me pitch to you because I want you to come and work for me. And sometimes over a coffee, you can actually hit upon something that is a new business idea or a new opportunity.
Partnership opportunity, or I'm working with this client and I've got a problem.
Absolutely.
I can help you solve that problem, for example.
The people you avoid in a room tend to be the sales first approach, which is like, buy from me.
Yeah.
There's people in Manchester who I've never bought anything from. They've never bought anything from me, but they've introduced me to people. They've introduced new business opportunities because we got on a personal level, and there's also a professional respect there.
Yeah.
And I've seen those people go on and start their own sort of collaborative project.
Yeah.
Aimed at getting new business, but that is primarily to bring people together and share knowledge, because collaboration, like if you know something and you've got that secret, it's your secret for a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
It's like when a company launches a new product on an open source platform, it's yours for a year or two
until someone copies it. Yeah.
And
look at Snapchat and Instagram.
Exactly, but it's the same principle. Whereas if you could, in agency world, collaborate from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to give some IP away, and yes, you're going to share some of that knowledge, which is a bit dangerous. But if you have a strong enough relationship, everybody gets better.
Yeah.
Everything moves forward.
You learn a lot, don't you? I think that's one of the main things that I actually learn about what's going on in the market. Now, I might talk to a video agency or a dev agency or a UX designer or someone working in digital marketing or whatever, or someone just working completely outside of it, outside of our actual kind of segment of or what I work in digital. But you get a feel for what's going on as well, and I think that's always a good thing. It's always a good thing to know what's going on in the market.
Know if you're ahead, know if you're middle of the pack, know if you need, but that's why, for me, open source and tech is so great, because you have got that thing to yourself for a while, but then it's out there.
Yeah.
And it's on you then to be better and better and better.
Yeah.
Whereas, in agency land, unless you are open and collaborate, you kind of do fall behind.
Yeah.
It's been a terrifying couple of years in Manchester, because some incredible businesses aren't here anymore.
Yeah.
Some have merged and bought out. There's tons going on in the city. But the ones that stand out are the ones that collaborate.
Yeah, definitely.
You look at the awards scene across the city, which can get heavily criticised, and I think unless it's independently judged, it can be a bit tricky.
Plus, they're actually, if you're not careful as well, some of the people who are going there to award ceremonies for the first time, it is a staff social, and that's all good, but I think it's also respecting why you're actually there. And so that's the only thing. Obviously, I like a tipple, but I think when I see it, especially from people who are just starting out in the industry, I think they see it as a piss up rather than what I've actually developed over time is, it's an opportunity to speak to people. It's an opportunity to listen to what people have done and why they've done it and why they've been recognised.
And look at the amount of collaborative projects. So the amount of awards now that are going to more than one agency.
Yeah.
2 or 3 agencies are working on delivering one project. And I think that's phenomenal. I think it's absolutely a credit to Manchester.
So let's rewind back to when you first joined 77 and was working with me for the first time.
In November 2016?
Yes.
Well remembered.
We're not looking at your LinkedIn profile or anything.
Not anymore. So, yeah, I came into 77 as head of communications to deliver a rebrand. So at the time I joined, 77 was 3 separate entities: Photolink, Hungry Tiger in London, and Photolink India in Mumbai. The company was well renowned for nearly 40 years for being a brilliant photographic and production company. It had diversified so much over the last decade that Photolink didn't feel like the right fit as a name, as an ethos, as a company anymore. It's got
such a photographic connotation to it as well. Although
there's something about it that implies photo.
Yeah, the link bit is fairly digital, but I think when you've built a reputation over 40 years for being great at photography, sometimes it's hard to change that perception without rebranding or without changing something fairly significant. So yes, exactly. It makes complete sense why we did it, and I think obviously that's the main reason why we were brought in. So you kind of talking to the business owners, and you're basically giving the rebrand, you're given the name, you're given the kind of raw materials,
the rollout strategy.
Yeah.
So I came in to implement a way to get that brand out.
Yes.
A way to establish it as a foothold, a way to pull people together internally. So it was a big process of going, internally, externally, what do we need to say, at what point do we need to think about saying it?
Yes.
It was a big positioning exercise, again, both internally and externally. And that all needed to be done in 6 to 8 weeks.
And in secret. So there weren't that many people that actually knew about the rebrand, because at the time, I think when you joined, I was up in the attic working with a small team just trying to deliver a website, but we had like panels up so that no one could see what we were working on. It was supposed to be, you have to keep it a secret from the staff and also our clients, because no one knew what the name was. We didn't know what the look and feel was. We didn't know like the colour palette and what the logo was and all that stuff. So
and one of the first things I did, actually, I think I'd been here about a month, and I did the brand stories event.
Yes, yeah.
And I think Photolink stories trended on Twitter, #1 that night, all night. And we had Tayab from Public Desire on the panel. Yeah. We had Julie Phelan from Shop Direct.
Yeah.
And we had branding expert on the panel as well.
Yeah.
A sort of, I think it was School of Thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the essence was to get people to even care. Why does anybody care that you've rebranded? Well, they don't. Is your service going to be better? Are we going to get better results from you? To make sure people cared, we had to give them a flavour of something. So for them to care about 77, they need to care about Photolink.
Yeah. So
the brand stories event was all about planting that seed of, this is how we tell stories, through content, through photography, through this, through that. And it was a perfect way to sort of end that year and segue into the new year. We had 100 odd people in the building. It was a really good night. I think we've got a really old video from it as well that just sort of captures some of the evening.
Yeah.
I'll try and find it and share it in the Senate podcast.
Yeah.
But it was a really great way to sort of introduce a new way of doing things, a new style of business we were doing. Come February, we'd had Financial Times in, we'd had Prolific North in, we'd had tons of different publications in to speak to us and do the PR. Early February we launched, big bang, sort of big client communications effort, and then
the rebrand party was the best part for me. No offense on the other stuff, but the rebrand party was the best bit.
We all got taken to a location halfway between Mumbai, London, and Manchester, which is Birmingham. Work that out, geographical experts. But it was great, and it was a time for us all to bond, because for anybody who's worked in a company that is split across different locations, to integrate and to feel collaborative and to feel like one thing is a really difficult challenge.
It was good to fly in the team from India as well. Some of the key members of the team in India.
It's brilliant. They'll never listen to Genuine Pony. ever again. Somebody dancing away on the night.
I can't believe you referenced that. Shout out to all that. No, I'm saying it. She's amazing.
So yeah, that happened, and then fast forward a couple of months, and you're into sort of the nitty gritty of, well, the brand's been delivered, we're doing this. How do we make sure this company now is operating as 77 and not like PhotoLink did?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where my role as head of comms dissolved itself a little bit, and I moved into a head of multi-channel role.
So the objective initially was to deliver come to an agency, deliver the rebrand both internally and externally, but then take that rebrand and brand ethos forward into a multi-channel environment, kind of working more client-facing than you were previously.
Yeah. So make a marketing plan work for the agency, like a new word, and then see how that could be applied commercially to clients.
Yeah.
Because a key thing that was missing in the business at the time, we had you who was running digital with marketing experience, as in what I do, the softer stuff, the communication side of things, the content planning, the campaign and stuff.
Yeah.
We have brilliant creatives, brilliant account managers, all of those people, a branding team, but not somebody who could speak that whole language.
Yeah.
And anybody who was brave enough to listen to the beginning part of this podcast knows that I've had every job going. So I've worked across brand, I've worked across digital, I've worked across this, that, the other. I could see a client problem and effectively prescribe what the right solution would be. It's a bit like being an in-house doctor, but without a cool title or
And a multi-channel is pretty cool.
Animal chatting is pretty cool.
I think obviously the timing of it is pretty relevant as well. So that's what we're talking there. We're talking early 2017, and I think that obviously the word integrated is probably how it's described.
Yeah.
In an integrated agency, for example. But I think this notion of multi-channel is something that we're still perfecting now, isn't it? Even 2 or 3 years on, we're still trying to perfect that multi-channel approach, because so many different spinning plates, like what's your photography, what's your video, what's your podcast strategy, what's your blog content, SEO, all these like social media, like you've got to tie it all together. And I think that's the biggest thing that gives clients headaches is it's just so high demand right now, isn't it?
It's way back to the problems I faced back at Yoga, which was nothing spoke to each other.
Yeah.
But that was a technology issue.
Yeah.
We have the tech now.
Yeah.
It's how do you do that sustainably and effectively? And this, it's a massive challenge. And 2 years down the line, we're still working on it.
Yeah.
But we are doing it so much better.
Oh, we've got a really talented team as well, who basically, we've got people who are experts in different areas. I think the thing that you find though when you work with any expert, if I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I've got a specialism, and my specialism is in digital. So like my biggest transition of working with yourself and other people in the team is, you've got to snap yourself out of that singular discipline mindset, and you've got to understand typography. You've got to understand photography.
But you've got to have an appreciation of it.
Yeah.
I think I've never been brilliant at any one thing.
Yeah.
Like jack of all, master of none.
Yeah.
If I was a lot fitter, I would do a sport like CrossFit, because it's the same like methodology, which is like be really good at a lot of things.
Yeah.
Don't be brilliant at one thing.
Yeah.
Or be in the Olympics.
Yeah.
That's how I am as a marketer. That's how I am as a person. I'm just alright at a bunch of different random stuff.
Yeah.
It just so happens that I've ended up working in marketing to do that.
But if you've got the experience of what the various different things do, you can then bring in the specialist to write the blog, or to create the ad, or to shoot the video, or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where this notion of multi-channel really does come into its own. So that's obviously, that brings us up more to the kind of present day. And for me, I think it'd be really good to kind of ask you a couple of like more kind of quick fire questions, and talk about you and what you've experienced in your career, to try and give people some insight. So if you're looking back at this kind of marketing career that you've been developing over time, and obviously there's lots to come in the future, but when you look back, what are the kind of 1 or 2 things that you think you enjoyed the most, or that were most successful?
the sort of pride you get from completing something that you had no idea what it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
And for that, I'd reference, the stuff I did with the darts at Speedy.
Yeah.
Running a darts competition, the UK Open from the Reebok Stadium or whatever it's called now, Bolton's football ground.
University of Bolton.
University of Bolton Stadium. That was incredible. It was a company first. It was a first for them.
Didn't you do the bottle cap challenge in like 2012 or something?
I wish. It's called the Teabag Challenge, and you can search it on YouTube. And Phil Taylor and Michael Van Gogh and all those guys are doing it.
Google Teabag Challenge.
Yeah, Speedy. But that was.
If you take the Speedy bit out, you'll get my webpage up.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm really, really proud of that. It was random. I got to, take my parents and their friends and loads of other mates to the darts. I got my stuff on Sky Sports. I got to do everything, and that was amazing. So that is something that always makes me laugh. And it's just the most random thing.
Yeah.
But that was great.
Who have been the kind of biggest influences on your career up until now? Because you've actually mentioned quite a few people up until now, but I think you don't need to mention people if you don't want to. But I think it's always good to find out, how you've been influenced throughout the years.
I've mentioned quite a few people already, like you said, but the one person I haven't mentioned was my mentor, Leanne Grimshaw.
Right. Okay.
She, when I was at the U-Word, didn't really understand the concept of mentoring, but I was missing something. And it is honestly, like anybody working in any job role, if you can find a mentor, it will be the best thing you ever do.
How do you identify a mentor?
I was lucky in that Leanne sat on a non-exec board,
right.
And she had a massive background in marketing, ran her own agency, all this, that, and the other. But nowadays there are websites where you can sign up.
Yeah.
You can stick a post out on LinkedIn. Stick something out on social media. Social media, and a mentor will find you. But come to the MPA, come to Pro Manchester, will help you find mentors. But it has fundamentally changed my mindset. It's changed how I look at things. It's opened me up to the idea that as much as I try and look after my body and go to the gym, I never really thought about looking after my mind as well.
Yeah.
And how important mental health is, and how misunderstood it is. So, if I'd have had Leanne when I was going through the trouble with a previous job, I think I would have come at it a very different way. But sort of Leanne was a brilliant sense checker, therapist, mentor, and still is. Like she's still one of the first people that I speak to if I'm struggling with something, or any event that she's at, I'll go to and listen to, because she's a phenomenal speaker. She'll say fuck more times in a
Gary V.
Yeah, she will drop a few different choice words, but she's brilliant. She's authentic. She taught me you can be exactly who you are and succeed. You don't have to hide behind it.
It's funny you say that. I think that's one thing that I realised when I joined PhotoLink or 77 at the time, and something that when you do lose confidence and you are still like kind of questioning yourself, and you're thinking, am I doing the right thing? I think the best businesses or the best people are the people who encourage you to be yourself, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Unless you're an absolute idiot, I think that.
Don't hashtag it, but like hashtag you are enough has never been more relevant.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was going to say hashtag. Yeah. With regards to kind of how you like to approach your day, when you're coming in, and or if you're approaching things from a kind of ritual or routines perspective, have you got any any in particular that you carry out?
I am quite a routine-y person, just because without it, I don't function quite as well. So for me, it's up quite early. This isn't one of those like wanky LinkedIn posts where up at 3, 6-hour workout, coffee, smash the day.
You're not The Rock.
I'm not The Rock. Wish it was Dwayne Johnson. Mine is, get up, go to the gym for an hour, get into the office. In that time, I've probably read through my emails, caught up on things. I don't necessarily have the most healthy habits when it comes to a work-life balance, because I've always struggled with that. My work and personal life are quite intertwined.
Yeah.
You know, I've done a lot of work on trying to find that balance and you know, sort myself out in better ways. But I think for me, like, that workout in the morning, the getting in here, getting a coffee, reading through things, but being walking into something that I know I'm walking into.
Yeah.
Surprises are fine, but my days are really busy.
Yeah.
Especially with like 10 different jobs on the go, different things I've got to do.
Yeah.
But the important thing is at night time, it's one thing 77's been great for, is you're not getting emails at midnight. You don't get emails in the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, respect that people have a life.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, Chris and Jane are brilliant at being like, why are you messaging me at 9 p.m?
Yeah.
I want to watch Bake Off.
Yes. That's probably good.
Yeah, but and that's really important. Working with a company or working for yourself, or you employing people, treat them like people, because you don't own them.
Yeah.
And you will get far more from those people than you ever would disrespecting that. You know, embrace flexibility and let people be humans, not robots. So yeah, I love a routine.
Yeah.
That's kind of my only thing really, is gym and coffee.
Good. Well, you know, like when we're looking at giving people advice or sharing a book with someone, or a piece of content or a video or quote, is there anything that you've shared with people more often than not?
A couple of different things, but that's changed a lot over the last couple of years. I love podcasts.
My podcast.
Your podcast.
All right. Thank you.
But you know, my dad wrote porno would be the first thing that I switch on and have a laugh. But I think more recently I've been really focused on stuff that helps me. I don't know whether that's just because I'm getting older and like,
we're old girls now, so we got to look after ourselves.
I don't know. I think just my mindset's changed a little bit, and I think, you know, I've connected with people on things I didn't think I would do. So there's a wonderful lady called Esther Perel, and she has a brilliant podcast, and it's all about, you know, how to manage relationships, how to be a better person. She's got a brilliant book called Mating in Captivity, which is a different way to think about, you know, all relationships and desire, and won't get into that too much, but that's brilliant. We were introduced to one a couple of weeks ago, Good Strategy, Bad Strategy.
Oh yeah.
It's, you know,
I've not read the book yet, but I believe it's really good. Yeah,
but I think sharing books and sharing podcasts is one thing that is actually unifying a lot of people at the minute.
Yeah,
it's so nice to, you know, better than just how's your day, what you doing, are you busy? I'm always busy. Are you stressed? I'm stressed. It's, you know, what's a really good book you read, of what's the last podcast you listened to. So those would be ones I would definitely listen out for.
Good. And obviously, like, there's a lot of different people in the industry. Are there any people in the like a singular person or people in the industry where you really look up to them and you think, wow, you know, they're doing a great job? You know, because you have actually, you know, more people in this industry than I think I'll ever know. Are there any people that you look at and go, I really like what that person's doing, or I really respect that person, whether you know them or you don't know them?
Yeah.
No, you don't look up to people.
Oh, actually, I've got a better answer to the previous question. The one person I didn't mention is Brené Brown. She is absolutely awesome, and you can watch her talk on Netflix. But anybody who is like interested in you know, making themselves feel better, or having a clearer view on things for themselves, Brené Brown is brilliant, and her whole concept is about sort of leaning in and daring greatly. So she's great.
Good.
But back to
it's all good.
People I look up to. Do you know what? There are loads, and being part of the MPA, I get to. I'm lucky to sit around the board table.
Yeah.
Of absolute, you know, business.
Yeah, legends, aren't you?
Legends. You know, Sian runs the MPA. He's brilliant. Christian, who runs If Agency, who is the chair of the MPA.
Full names, please.
Christian James and Cindy Simmons. They are, you know, probably accidental mentors to me as well.
Yeah,
which were terrifying.
can see that.
And they've been brilliant. But you've got around that table people like Johnny Ashworth from Mighty Giant, Sean Keys from Twitter. You've got people making a big difference in more than just Manchester, but the industry itself.
And running a business. Which is ridiculous.
And running a business really well, but I think there are some really obvious ones who I don't want to say because I think everybody references the same people.
Yeah, no, that's all good.
But I think for me, people who have a really clear value, make a difference, and look like they give a shit, they're the best people to have in this industry.
Completely agree with that. As far as like kind of trends and stuff that's coming up for the future, let's try and limit the future to the next 2 or 3 years. Like, what are the major changes that you think will happen in marketing in the next 2 or 3 years?
I think people will get better at personalization. Personalization has been around forever, but the ways people are using it now are, so much more unique and so intelligent.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking digitally here, right? We're talking about...
I was talking hello, Paul, in my email.
We're not just talking about hi, Paul, or hi, Casey.
Hi, Casey Digital, at Casey Digital.
But was it Lidl or Aldi that did the adverts last year, the TV adverts that were like, somebody tweeted about, I bet they're not even real chickens that they use in the chicken pie.
Yeah.
It's all that kind of stuff that's a bit, they can push boundaries a bit more than others, but it's that connecting with people. We've gone through an absolute shitstorm politically, economically. The world is...
Don't say the B word. I don't say the B word on my podcast.
No B word on your podcast, but there has been so much malaise and pain and suffering. We have what we have now. Let's move forward, but let's all work together to make things bearable and better. And I think, marketing is a fun way to do bits of that. Personalization is going to be even bigger. Everybody's got a podcast. Every dog's got a podcast. But you know what? They're not going anywhere. Casey Digital.
Come on, listen.
They are going
Share
anywhere.
It with your friends.
Exactly.
Please.
Back from when I did student radio at university, podcasts were just starting out then, but they're not going anywhere. It's so easy to consume content like this.
It's easy to create the content now as well. This platform that I use, Anchor, is really easy. Even when like we were talking about creating like Facebook ads and Google and stuff, Google AdWords, the actual platforms, everything is geared towards making it easier for you to actually create the content. And everyone has an iPhone, so there's no excuse as far as I'm concerned.
Massively. And, depending on your sector, things like Klarna or ClearPay or Buy Now, Pay Later, they are, dangerous, but they are boosting e-commerce.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very specific to that. But as for the rest of the industry, I think data is important.
Yeah.
But I think data in a less complicated way than it's always been approached.
Yeah.
Data that is relevant and influential to what you do as a thing. If you work in property, you might need to know the value of the house just sold, or the upcoming trend of where's the next cool place to live.
Yeah.
You don't need to know the size of someone's feet.
Yeah.
So refining data as well, I think, is going to be a big thing.
Cool. Well, I think that's a very kind of good way to kind of end that particular segment, and I think moving into the final aspect now, which is just I like to try and give people as much advice and as much kind of tips as possible coming from the experts and the people who I speak to on the podcast. No one else was available, so I'm stuck with you now.
Lol.
So,
catch Casey Digital's next episode. Why Sian took over my podcast.
Why my podcast ended because I'm not funny. So if someone's looking to get into the industry, I do like to kind of give career advice and stuff like that. If someone's starting out in the industry for the first, this is the first time. So think of yourself leaving uni and, when you were moving and looking for jobs and your friend recommended at the time to go to Yodel and what you were working on at the time. What advice would you give to people who are in that same situation in 2020?
Remember that now your footprint online is more visible than ever. there isn't one person I haven't Googled that I've worked with. Yes, Paul.
Sorry.
I've seen. I've seen those photos. So remember that what you're putting out there is your legacy, basically. It's your portfolio, it's your CV before I've even read your CV. People have got offended in the past that you've seen Facebook profiles, Twitter profiles as private. Unless you put that on private, no, it's not.
Don't put it out there.
Don't put it out there. So just be aware of that.
I'm so glad the internet didn't exist when I was a teenager, to the level that it is today.
The process of getting things from university is painful. But I think also, get out there. There are so many people fighting for jobs, but find what you're good at. The best sort of up-and-coming next-gen people that I've been meeting recently have been very like, this is what I do, this is what I'm great at. Can that benefit your company? I've thought about it and it can because of this.
Yeah.
Rather than, can I apply to be your head of marketing? What experience have you got? I'm just fresh out of uni, but I know I could do
I've got a degree.
Because I would like to earn like 80 grand a year. And it's like, okay, number one, not many heads of marketing earn that much money. And number two, where are those jobs, please?
Yeah.
But, find your fit and make yourself indispensable to someone. Great.
Well, I think that's a really good way to end. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast. And I think for anybody who wants to get in touch with you, what's the best kind of way?
Twitter or LinkedIn. So it's at Sian English _ on Twitter, or find me Sian English with a black and white goofy headshot on LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks, Paul. This has been lovely.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm your host, Paul Casey. If you'd like to connect with me, find me on LinkedIn or on Instagram, the username Casey Digital, or just search for Paul Casey anywhere you find me. Thank you.